It needed to be said, welcome to the Horseman podcast, an open forum podcast, a show where we explore conversations. We're your host, Josh and Greg. Today's date is May 28th. Today we will be talking about ourselves, how we met, who we are, why we started the podcast. Stay with us. It's going to be a great episode. We are thankful for you guys for being here. This took a lot of work. Greg, good to see you again.
Yeah, dude, great to see you.
It's been...
Also, can I introduce myself?
Go for it, dude. Go for it.
It's like, hey, I'm Greg. You know?
Go for it, dude.
My name, and I'm just like sitting here. Okay, yeah, no, I'm Greg. I'm the co-host. There's Josh. He is the host. We've actually been talking about this for quite some time, haven't we?
It's been a few weeks that we've been talking about this. It was an idea that's been burning in my head for a couple of months now, and I figured the best way I know how to go through this podcast is to go with probably one of the smartest guys I know. As much as this is a whole new thing for us, it's exciting because I can guarantee you that none of us have ever done something as big as a podcast live on Twitch before. I don't know if you've done anything like this.
No, not at all. This is actually my first time.
Okay.
I'm actually a little nervous.
So are you a what they would call a Twitch virgin?
I am a Twitch virgin.
All right.
My first Twitch live stream.
Awesome.
I don't know what to expect.
Yeah. So I mean, from the realms of Twitch, and for what it's worth, Twitch is one of the fantastic ways for creators to produce their content in a live format. So YouTube had this thing going where it's like YouTube gaming, where people would post up other YouTube stuff, but that's turned into something that's not for the small creators. A couple months ago, I went down the line for just chatting. That's the one of the categories, and there are so many people streaming so much different content that it's impossible not to be entertained, at least for like a good 5-10 minutes. So what we're hoping out of this, or at least my thoughts, is having an open forum conversation in a world where sometimes it can be hard to have an open conversation with people about topics that may or may not be completely, totally okay with some people's past, but also to expose us and our creative interests and to show the world that two great minds can come together and have a conversation and through their intelligence into the world.
Or at least try.
Or at least try. Or at least try. Um, I did have a question for you. This is something
Okay.
that last year I remember you were working on a big project that about a guy making some stuff. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about that?
Yeah. So right now I'm working on a documentary. We've actually shortened it down to 15 minutes, and it's called Small Shop Big Mind. And what this film follows, it follows a welder from Mexico named Primo, and how he immigrated here over to the United States and started welding and built his business from the ground up.
Huh. So he made his way up and he settled. I guess he settled down somewhere in Washington, and he
Yes.
started making these statues. How did people find out about him?
It just started off small, honestly. It was just like word of mouth. He just worked hard every single day. You know, um, he started off by making these small like metal boats, and then he just did that for a while. Then he was working, like under all these different, welders. He did that for a little bit. Then he realized, the quality of these other welders was pretty low, and this was back in the 90s. After going 20 years of doing it on his own, he is then now like, you know what? I'm going to start my own business. You know,
Hmm.
and then from the 2000s on, he's just been doing it on his own.
I remember there was a fact that you told me. What was it? It was like the largest metal statue. Was it in the country, in the world, or something like that?
Um, I don't know, but it is definitely one of the largest hand sculpted knights, and
Ooh.
that's like 60. I believe. I believe it's 20 feet tall.
Whew. That's pretty.
Yeah,
And he welded that all.
he
Was
welded that all
was
by hand.
was that just scrap metal he had lying around, or was that? Do you know if it
Um,
was just scrap metal lying around? Because I know
it was.
some people on YouTube have this thing where they have a bunch of materials and they just weld it together and make something.
Yeah, no, he didn't have like any extra material.
Okay.
It was practically him calling up his buddies.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's just like, hey, this was he got money after like the first big project he did, right? And then he was like, hey, I'm going to do something. Here he is over in Mexico, at this time. He's like, oh, I'm going to build a huge metal knight. No one commissioned him to do it. It's just like, I'm just going to do it. So
And
he starts building this metal knight by hand, right? And he gets done, and then like done with it, and he needs to get this thing painted, right? So he calls a friend of his. He's like, "Hey, all in Spanish, right?" And he's like, "Hey, I have this metal knight. Can I use your shop to paint it?" And his friend's like, "Oh yeah, sure, okay." And so he goes, he brings in, this 20-foot knight, and then his buddy walks in, and he's like, "What? We can't use. Can we use explicits on here?" But he's like, we all know that. Finish that sentence. He's like, I thought you were talking about like these like small little ones, like maybe a foot like tall. This is like gigantic, man.
it's
You're
20 feet
crazy.
tall. You walk into a barn and there's a 20 foot tall welded metal statue. That's your
Statue.
job. There you go. That's what you need to do. It's like, oh my lord. Uh, that's probably that's impressive. That is
Yeah.
extremely impressive. Like the
Oh yeah.
I, I
And
don't.
this is back 80s too.
Oh
So
boy.
So it's not necessarily like you could go online and like look like for references. Everything you knew back then, it's just like you had to jot down notes.
Right.
So it's just like
Yeah.
pure
That's
craftsmanship.
yeah. That is one of the things about the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s that I like. And doing research upon like different things, music's one of them, and movies are too. Um, I was seeing a clip. Mark Hamill was talking to Graham Norton about this, about the ingenuity they use with the mind control, the Force, in the old movies. Um,
Oh my.
in number 5, when he was hanging upside down in the cave, they actually had a fishing wire that grabbed the lightsaber from his hand, and they just reversed the film.
Oh no
That was
kidding.
the ingenuity behind it. And now he made the comment. He goes, and now they just spend way too much money, and it just doesn't look as cool. And the fact that Mark Hamill, probably one of the biggest movie stars of all time, with the Star Wars franchise, rips on it for spending too much money, and probably some of the people working at CGI is like, dude, seriously? We scrapped for hours on this, and you're just gonna write us off like it's something? It's like, but you gotta understand, in the '70s and '80s, the sounds they got from the blaster sounds, that was a telephone cable or a metal cable that they hit, and it was like that. That's what you used, like that, and the creativity is unparalleled to the '70s and '80s and early '90s, because the internet wasn't around, and or very limited parts of the internet was around. Um, and I think with the Star Wars movies, it did follow the Star Trek movies, but I want to say that the Star Wars movies brought in a new era where people really were like, let's seriously get creative. You seen the stuff that this guy's doing behind the scenes? This is insane. And that guy, using just word of mouth and metal he picked up from everywhere, and just put it all together, and is now, this is sort of what he's known for, welding different pipes together. I mean, that ingenuity is exactly what we need, and more stories like that need to be told.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think there are a lot of those stories out there, and I think we're all starting to come around to them, because not to, bash our own media. I think a lot of it is great, some of it not, but like that's like with everything. But I think some of us are media out,
Yeah.
and are kind of tired of some of hearing the same story. And what I mean by that is, the same story where it's just like you can almost feel like there's an underlying tone of like a certain bias,
Mm-hmm.
instead of saying, yo, this is what happened and this is what I did to make this happen. And I think, a lot of people, what I've been seeing, and what I've been looking for are more stories like that, instead of trying to look for it's just like you have to think a certain way after this. It's just like, no, this is just a good story from like the beginning of like, this is where I started, this is what I'm doing now, and this is what I'm doing to keep progressing forward.
Yeah. Um, that's a good point you made about the same stories you hear over and over again, because we see it in the news all the time, that the same old stories, and then upon your research you stumble across a story of an old man who is a taxi driver, and it's his, let's give a number, random number, 59th year of riding a taxi in New York, one of the most famous taxi drivers in New York, right? And having maybe a smaller media segment like, hey, we need to get this guy on and see what kind of stories he has. Because 59 years in New York, that's a long time.
Oh yeah.
Many people have come and gone through taxi drivers, and especially if you're in the right borough, or you travel through the right boroughs, you're gonna meet a lot of very interesting people. And
Oh,
I would love to do a story on one of those taxi drivers, like just get, hey, how long have you been doing this? Like, really, how long have you been driving through New York? And there is a show called How I Met Your Mother. Um,
oh my
and
gosh.
I'm getting into it. I wasn't into it before, but now I'm like totally into it. I watched like 7 episodes last night, and there, it's kind of a light-hearted thing. At the end, it's kind of funny. The one of the characters, Robin, she's a news reporter, and she does a story on I believe it was a cab driver or something like that, and he tells a story about Mickey Mantle once rode in my cab, and it's like that. Those kind of stories are awesome. And then she falls off the carriage and lands into a pile of horse dung. But it's one of those things where you look at that and you go, that's what we need more in the world. We need more stories on the small people in reference to the big A-list celebrities that have these cool small stories. Because everyone knows what a party scene is like. But do you know what a cab ride is like? Like, everyone knows you go to a party, you see a bunch of people you know, you talk to somebody you know, you have a great time, and you go home, and you forget about the next day. But a cab ride, some of those cab drivers can say some pretty inspirational things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. The cabs that I've gone have been those fake taxi ones, and
Oh,
that's a different story. Oh.
I remember. So there's Lyft, and then you have Lyft and Uber, and then you have taxi. And the funny part about Lyft is that it's always trying to Uber and Lyft are these competing partners, right? And there are some similarities between the two, but there are also some differences between the two. And I believe the similarities are it's a car, it's a driver, it's an app, and you order. The differences are what I've seen with Lyft is there are a lot of worse drivers with Lyft than there are with Uber, which surprises me because they're just drivers, right? The last time I took a Lyft, headed back from work, headed home, and the driver had no idea right from left. No idea. Like, it was like, turn right up here. Oh, and he would start turning the car left. I'm like, no. The driveway's right over here. And he starts turning more to the left. And I'm like, no, it's the driveway's over there. That's where you need to go. And then he just goes, oh, okay, just let me know next time. And it's like, wait, what? I told you like 3 times, and I was so confused. And with the taxi stuff, I feel like people take taxis for the nostalgia now, because you have Uber and Lyft as a mainstream thing, but I feel like people take taxis for the nostalgia, or I guess it's just mainly for big cities.
I don't know, man. Like, if Uber and Lyft are pretty busy, or like I have a dead phone, it's just like, yo.
That's a good point. A dead phone. That's a good point. That's a very good point. I know Seattle has a few taxi drivers, and I know San Francisco has a few taxi drivers. Would you say it's accurate to say that the taxi scene is more of an East Coast?
I don't know. To be honest, I haven't traveled quite a bit, and I haven't taken a lot of taxis to be able to say.
Okay.
Usually I'm skateboarding around.
The classy style.
Skateboarding or driving.
You got to skateboard in a suit.
Yeah. Exactly.
I remember. What was it? You were in a suit for some reason. I can't remember what it was. It was last summer.
Birthday.
Oh, that's right. It was. Yeah.
Wear a suit because I wanted to look nice. It was COVID-19.
Because there was. I remember you had dressed up in a suit for your birthday, but there was another thing where you dressed up in a suit, and you were also excited for this. I don't know what it was for, but you came out of your.
I remember what you're talking about now. So, this is when I used to work for Dank's Wonder Emporium. They're a international cannabis company that's not doing so hot right now.
Oof.
And we were making a commercial, and the premise of this commercial is we all know Jehovah's Witnesses, right?
Right.
So we were doing a spin-off of, like, okay, so how do we advertise? This is like a commercial, right? Of, like, letting everybody know in the neighborhood that Danks had whatever, cannabis product for whatever price. And it started off in a boardroom, right? So you have these executives talking about, all right, this is how we're going to do it. And they're like, we're thinking old school, baby, door to door. And here I am, dressed in a full-on suit, biking in a neighborhood, just like, yeah. I walk up to a door, I do one of those cool bike skids, right? It's like, and then like throw the helmet, lands perfectly on the bike, and then I walk up to the door, just three knocks, boom, boom, boom. You know, the neighbor opens up, and I'm like, "Have you heard the good news?" And then just say the deal right then and there.
That's what it was. You were so stoked about this. You were like, you walked out and Tusho and I were just like, they were wearing a suit today. Yeah, man, we're gonna go shoot some commercials, and I'm gonna be a Jehovah's Witness. And Tusho were like, okay, like sounds great. You're pumped about this. Flew out the door, da da da. You come back, and you have like the biggest smile on your face. You're just like, oh my god, it was awesome. And Tusho were like, yay! we didn't know how to react because we're like, are we gonna see the commercial? I should look for that commercial sometime if it's out there.
What's funny is, oh shit. So there's a lot of rules regarding cannabis
Ah.
and how you advertise it. So what we were doing was practically illegal, and
Oh crap! My headphone thing jack fell off.
oh,
It's technically illegal.
technically illegal. Um, well, for Washington State, we could do it in Oklahoma, but for Washington State, it was illegal, and um,
Continue.
so we would have to put it through all these back channels so we could just get it to be like a YouTube ad
Oh
for a
boy.
few
I
seconds.
yeah.
And if anyone were to ask us, "Hey, was this a YouTube ad?" we would be like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
That is funny though. It's like, oh, we have a job and we advertise, but it's illegal. And people just kind of like, huh, a business model that's illegal. Sounds
yeah, we
professional.
actually did quite a bit of that.
Okay.
So I'm happy I'm out of it, so everybody, I'm no longer a criminal.
Who was it? Talking about the creative genius, but also like the criminal aspect. Unfortunately, we had there was this guy in downtown Seattle breaking into high-rise buildings, going up to the top of the high-rise buildings and taking photographs of the city down below. He's done this in New York. He's done this in Philadelphia, Chicago, San Francisco, Portland, and then just recently Seattle. So when this came over the wire, I was like, oh, I gotta find this guy. I gotta see, what exactly he does. So I looked him up, and man alive, the photographs are unbelievable. I mean, it looks like it has that traffic blur type, where the traffic's going across the road, and it's a little blurred out. And it just looks like they're going very, very fast. I'm like, man, if this guy wasn't a criminal, I'm like, good God. If I find his Instagram, I'll share it to you. But he's got stuff on YouTube. All you have to do is search up, I think, what did I shoot? It was like Portland high-rise building adventure or whatnot. And it was like the first one that popped up. And then that's how I found his Instagram. But sometimes you gotta bend the rules just a little bit to get that creative aspect.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have to. That's how filmmaking started.
Yeah, that's and speaking of bending the rules just a little bit, there are some certain rules that that people have for various different things, whether that be watching movies, listening to music, or making food. And one of the ways that some people can bend the rules just a little bit is by completely and totally flummoxing your roommates to what you you said, oh god, because you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know what story's coming up. Oh my god.
So this was This wasn't the first weekend. This was
Okay.
the second
We we, we,
weekend.
we we got we gotta premise this for everybody because
Okay.
no one knows what we're
All right.
talking about.
Okay. So
So,
go for it.
all right, let me. So let's get this. So it's me, Josh, a couple other people living in this house. There's like 7 of us, right?
Yep.
We just all move in. Like in February. Then bam, the pandemic hits in March, and like it's just like we don't know anybody. So I guess we're all staying in, and all of a sudden it's just like okay, what to do for fun. So on Friday nights we decided to, you know, make dinner together. It's just like this will be at least a day that we can know that we could look forward to. Like pandemic wise, since we can't go out or anything. And this was the second week, and I believe it was Josh who had the idea of like, yo, we're about to throw down the most smacking grilled cheese sandwiches ever. So
Yeah.
what we do is like Josh and I, we go to the store, we buy like 4 different types of breads and like 7 or 8 different cheeses. Like we really went all ham.
The look of the cashier was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, we really went all out. Like bought some beer, smoked the ganja, as some would say, and we just went at it. And then, it's just like maybe we're like 4 grilled cheeses deep. And then, dude, Josh, you gotta take it away.
All right. So at this point, I'm gone. Like,
Yeah,
there
it's
is
Dunzo.
there is no mental infrastructure here. It's whatever sounds good, whatever tastes good. That's what I'm going for. So I'm like, you know what? This sounds really good in my head. So I take a toasted piece of bread and I lay down 3 very small cutlets of unmelted butter onto the toasted bread. And then I lay a couple slices of unmelted cheese. Now at this point, what I later learned was going through Greg's head was that, oh, he's gonna pop this on the griddle or put it in the toaster or put it on the skillet. No. As I said, toasted bread, 3 small cutlets of butter, and a couple pieces of cheese, and just ate it. And I turned around, and Greg, and whenever we went to teach his face, is just like, what
Whoa!
just happened?
Dude, we lost it.
I want to get your point of view on this, because, like, as soon as I bit into that, I want to know what was going through your head.
No, I just said it. Whoa! We lost it.
And they were just like, we were not expecting that. And I was like, that's me. And it became a thing. Like, it became a thing of, if we're making dinner, I believe it was, well, it was Cinco de Mayo, but we were celebrating Cinco de Mayo, but it was like Ocho de Mayo. And we're in there cutting everything up, and I believe I had like a lemon out or something like that. And my thing was, I have this thing where if somebody tells me you've got no balls to do something, now I have to figure out that I have to do it. Because, like, if someone goes, hey, you should do this, I'm like, nah, it's like, oh, you don't have any balls to do it. It's like, okay, now I have to do it. So Tusha was like, you got no balls to eat that entire lemon. And I was like, now I have to eat the freaking lemon. So I peeled the entire lemon while Tusha's watching me like, he's not doing it. So it's a regular size lemon. The rind is off. So all that's left is just the lemon. And I take the whole thing and put it into my mouth. And Tusha's like, oh my God, and just walks out the door. He's like, I've given up. I've seen it all. He had not seen it all. Because I believe it was a week later, we were making some kind of potato dish, and he goes, no balls to eat a raw potato. So I ate a raw potato. And Tusha was like, dude, is there anything you won't eat? And I was like, actually, yes, there are a few things I won't eat. I have some moral limits. I have some digestive limits. But one of the things that I look back on we lived. I moved into this house. I literally moved into this house like a week before the CDC came out with all this pandemic stuff, and I was like, man, did I bring the pandemic with me? And so we're in there. It's been about a week. We're kind of like getting to know each other. I think we as roommates have been in the same room. I think at least once or maybe twice. Still trying to get used to being in the same house. And I think I was either making coffee or I was making food of some sort. I walk in the kitchen. There's Greg, and I'm like, "Oh, sweet, awesome. We're in here cooking stuff like that." And I believe it was that conversation between the both of us we kind of realized we got the same kind of creative mind, and I believe that's what led into us doing a whole lot of the stuff that we did. Between making small movies on vlogs and stuff like that, hanging out on the porch. Oh, the living room! I missed the living room.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was our first conversation. It was over a cup of Joe.
Yes, it was.
I had just come back from Starbucks, and you were just waking up, getting ready for your job.
Mm-hmm.
Not like quite ready yet, but like getting the day started on your end, and I decided to have a cup of coffee with you, and we were just exchanging ideas, just learning back and forth of like, oh, I'm into filming, but I'm not quite sure how to do it professionally, and then I'm like, yo, I got a bachelor's in this. It's just like, what do you want to know?
I was like, dude, I found the exact person that I've been trying to find. It's like, this, like, you're an actual live person.
Yeah.
Who is in the same. I'm having a conversation with someone who knows exactly what I have interest in, and yeah, it was that cup of coffee that got us started, and I think from there, the learning really started because I learned how to. I had photos I edited and videos that I did. I can't remember if we collaborated on anything. Oh,
yeah, we did.
We did.
Actually, we did. So let me tell this. This is a small project that I'm working on right now. So right now, what I'm creating is actually when me and Josh were living together. I actually started working on a personal documentary about going through the pandemic.
Ooh, oh, that's right.
About just like Seattle, and it's like grown into more of like a kind of a self-personal, and like Josh and I walked around the city of Seattle, and we saw like a bunch of small businesses, and we kind of talked about it, and then we kind of like realized like the biggest thing out of all of this is actually us needing each other more than we actually need all these other superficial things.
Yeah.
Because all these superficial things are super nice, and all these services are great, but at the end of the day, it's just like how we treat each other and how we have to come together. That was like the most important thing, despite all of our differences, and find solutions. So that was a project that Josh and I that kind of like really kind of started this, like creative push. And then ever since then, him and I have just been jumping back and forth between just like, hey, how does this look? Or like, what do you think of this? And especially like with this podcast, like originally it was going to be Josh and some other guy. I don't know who the some other guy is, but he said, yeah, I have an itch. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. And like for me on my end, I'm like, dude, he's got to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I don't know what it's going to take, but I'm like, dude, if you need another co-host, dude, I'll do it. And that's like, and then like the last couple of weeks, Josh and I have just actually been going back and forth about how to make this happen. Josh has actually been doing quite a bit of work from creating all the motion graphics and designs that we see here today. The only key thing that I really did is just provide like kind of a small structure of like, okay, this is how you can bleed one thing into the next, and then like some design assets, but this is his huge creation. I'm just happy to be a very big part of it now.
Yeah, the funny story about how all this podcast started was this is actually prefaces back in January. So back in January, I was still working night shifts, and my off days were started Monday 6 a.m. and ended Wednesdays at 11 p.m. So most people who have I want to say, quote unquote, normal lifestyle. They go to work Monday through Friday, and they have Saturday and Sunday off. So Monday nights and Tuesday nights, a lot of people are like, okay, it's time for bed. We're going to go to bed at 7, 8 o'clock. And 7, 8 o'clock is, kind of when my night is just getting started, because it's 6 or 7 a.m. That's when it ended. So I would say goodnight to all my friends, and then I'd have 10 hours completely, totally alone. So I turned to Twitch. I got on Twitch, and I was going through all the categories of just chatting. Ended up finding a Twitch guy I really liked, and stuck around. And from there, I met a few amazing, wonderful, creative minds. And one of the guys in it, we really clicked. We were kind of on the same wavelength, and we talked. I think we got the idea. I think back in April, like, hey, we should start a podcast. Like we should really start a podcast. So we started researching it, and I knew fairly early on that it may not work because I was more involved in this than he was. He was very distant, had a very busy lifestyle, and was not all really that interested in a lot of the stuff that I was doing. Well, a couple weeks ago, he dropped off the face of the earth. Couldn't locate him anywhere. Couldn't contact him at all. And I was bummed. I was like, oh, man, I was really super excited about this. So I was like telling some people, then I messaged Greg, and then Greg was like, well, I'll do it. And I was like, oh, this is way better than I thought. And I went into full deep dive on creator mode. The graphics came out, the live stream mixing, stuff like that came out, and I had such a blast creating all this. I couldn't wait to get home from work because I was like, what is my mind gonna do now? And man, it's just it was such a relief knowing that I could finally get this thing off its mark, because I have been probably one of the biggest Joe Rogan fans of the past year, and I was like, man, he has so many of these great conversations, and he knows all these great people, and he goes, I'm like, I want to do that. I want to create a podcast. But if you notice, a lot of these podcasts that are coming out are there's a sequence, and then 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 end scene. Whereas Joe Rogan, it's sequence starts, and let the conversation flow. There's a comedian by the name of, it's like Bert something, and his niche is
Kessner?
Yes, that guy. Yeah, he has his niche is that he goes on the stage shirtless. Well, he came on, I believe it was him, 5.5 hour podcast. I'm like, man, wouldn't that be something? A 5.5 hour conversation? I watched the entire podcast, by the way. 5.5 hours. So for a 5.5 hour conversation in a world where 10 seconds is about my limit, shows how creative you can get with these things. And that's kind of like the hope with this podcast is we have a topic, we're kind of on the same wavelength, but also we input things that the other person doesn't think about, and it just triggers. It just presses a little button inside your head, and you go boom, 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 lay it out, keep it going, keep it rolling. And the best thing that comes out of that is we're just two regular dudes. We're just two funky dudes. That's all we are. Living life to the max.
Yeah.
Doing whatever is necessary, not only for personal happiness, but also because it's something that makes us excited about getting up in the morning.
Oh yeah, definitely. And just like looking at it, it's just like not necessarily like we're young, but it's just like I know there's definitely a lot of good that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what really excites me about this. It's just like we're not too like extreme super geniuses whatsoever, and we're always going to be like learning and educating ourselves as we go along the way.
Yeah.
And I'm just happy now that I get to share a platform with you, Josh, where we get to experience that, and with all these people. You know, it's going to be very
Yep.
tremendous.
and and that's the funny thing about Twitch is Twitch has a knack for just coming in and surprising you.
Oh
Just
yeah, no, we have three solid watchers right now, which is super sick.
and yeah, I mean, it does. I streamed for a bit. I did. I play video games with a guy from work. We play Escape from Tarkov and League of Legends and a bunch of other stuff. And I would stream and I would keep the desktop audio muted because I'll just preface this. There are some things that he and I talk about that it's like this is not appropriate for the internet. Like, not even
Oh
in the
yeah.
slightest. So even though you couldn't hear the game, and even though it was just me talking with a little bit of music playing in the background, the freedom of just doing what you love on Twitch without having a care in the world is one of those great things. Because Facebook has all these rules, and YouTube has all these rules, Instagram has all these rules, and Twitch is like, hey, as long as you don't use music, you're pretty much good. And especially both of us living within the same area, we fall under an exclusive category that not a whole lot of other states have, which is we can talk about basically anything without getting shut down. We can talk about marijuana, we can talk about alcohol, we can talk about drugs, we can talk about movies and arts and music and all that kind of stuff, and we won't get shut down. However, I guarantee you, if you go in Virginia, well, actually in Virginia they just passed it. So if you go in like Texas or something like that, you can't because it's not legal. Um, and that's the creative outlet that I wish is that I want to come out of this podcast is people popping on and having a free flowing conversation without a care in the world. Because
Yeah, and then we're also going to educate you along the way as well, you know, because we're not going like say, "Oh, go do this and do it blindly."
yeah,
No, it's just like this is what we are. We're not going to advise you, but this is our take.
yeah, and the great thing about two free flowing minds is that no matter what the topic is, someone out there is going to find something about it that boosts them over the edge. They go from not being able to do something to oh, they just I just discovered something. I just discovered a creative edit. Oh, that's how you make that line go this way. Oh, that's how you make this timer go down. And from there, that's when they get their creative content edge going is you find one little trick, one little piece of information that can totally set you apart from the others who are competing with you.
I wouldn't even say competing. You know, I would say that pushes you where you actually want to go.
Yeah.
Because I know we all get in, you know, these like little funks sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And just like, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to need or what I'm going to do to keep myself progressing forward. And sometimes it is that little like bit of, you know, you and I's conversation, or it's just like I happen to tune in here or there. But it is that little that sometimes is just like, oh, that is a good friendly reminder. I'm going to use this, you know, and actually use it to keep continuing my work forward, you know. And we wish you all the best and encouraging you to do that.
Yeah. What is the what is the longest you've gone on an editor block where you're doing something and you're just how do I do this? What's the longest that it's taken you to figure out something that that boosted you to the next stage?
Um, I say like I go through this all the time. It just depends. Like I just actually started editing regularly, maybe 3 weeks ago. Um, but I would say for a while I was on a kick for 2.5 years, 2.5 years, three, where like I opened Premiere, but it was like maybe once a month, you
Mm,
know, and After Effects, you know. So like take that into account for like 3 years, it's like less than 30 times.
yeah.
You know, it's just like for 3 years, dude, that's pretty rough.
Yeah.
You know, thinking about like how fast creative things have changed, but like a lot of it, like sometimes it's not necessarily the program. It's like you, but you're actually learning a different stage of editing
Mm.
because editing isn't not necessarily all program anymore. You know, it's also user based and it's learning how to take care of yourself. It's learning how to communicate with other people. That's not necessarily all like online, you know, and stuff. You know, because like for me, just to give you a little bit of background, I actually don't really think about the audience when I create content or likes or any of that. I know like a lot of creators say that, but like that's what I like. I could actually care less about all of that. What I really care about is actually the other person because I like to do a lot of documentary work and I actually like to listen to the other people do all the talking. So, like I spend more of my time now listening than actually trying to say something.
Mm.
Because sometimes I figure if I'm trying to say something, you know, and this person's the one that's actually telling me the story, it's just like I'm not necessarily letting them say their perspective or what they went through. It's just like I'm waiting for my turn to talk. And I'm not that type of person anymore. It's just like I actually want to hear what they actually have to say. And then I'm just like lucky and blessed, you know, to be able to and then they're like, okay, put it together. It's more of them telling the story than me, and I actually am more of a fan of doing that, and I've gotten a lot more. And I think, and that's also what's reignited, you know, my creative spark as well too, where it's just like, oh, it's not me trying to talk anymore. It's about me listening and seeing what I can do to progress forward. You know, I just happen to be part of the process for them to be able to do that, and I cannot be any more grateful.
What would you say is you look back on your on your career? I'll call it a career.
Yeah, I've been doing this professionally.
When you look back on your career, if you had to pick out maybe a couple moments where you're like, this is awesome. If you had to look back, had to pick out a couple of this is awesome moments, what would be
Oh,
like your top ones that come to mind?
top ones that come to mind. I think it was when everybody cheered. Okay, so this is what's up. So to give you a heads up, how I got into filmmaking, I watched a VCR behind the scenes of Star Wars. Um, but like I was like 10 years old, and I was actually pretty pissed off because I just wanted to watch the movie. I didn't want to see how the movie was made. Uh, and when that happened, I was like, oh, okay, that got me like thinking about movies and all of that. And then when I entered high school, my sophomore year, your sophomore year of high school over at Eisenhower, you had the opportunity to be able to enter a filmmaking class. And for me, I was like, dude, I gotta do it. Like, I'm interested. I'm gonna see what goes into it. And then I just started off storyboarding and just seeing, you know, like everybody laugh at like just these small little dumb sketches. You know, we would just rip off, you know, television commercials, you know, like the Old Spice guy or
Oh,
whatever it was at that time. And and I just did that. And then my junior year, this is what kind of set it off. It's just like it's like 2 weeks before school started, right? And I get a call from the principal like at 6 in the morning in the summer. Oh my, oh my God! And she's like, Greg. And I was like, yeah, you know, like barely awake. It's like, this is the principal of Eisenhower High School. I'm like, okay, you know, it's just like, what did I do wrong? You know, it's just
yeah.
like I haven't even been there. You know, it's like how? And she's like, can you meet me at the school in an hour? I'm like, yeah, okay. So I drive down, and she's like, I have this crazy idea. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. She's like, I want to create a whole inclusive video about the school. I'm like, okay, sick. And she's like, and I want you to edit it. And I'm like, whoa. And I've never edited anything in my entire life before. And I'm like, she's like, can you do this? I'm like, yes. And reality, I was like, I don't have anything. I don't have any equipment whatsoever. She's like, here are some hard drives. You know, the footage is on there. You'll do great. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, and here I am just thinking, fuck. So, uh, so I'm like, okay, how do I get editing software? You know, it's just like I didn't have a job, so I'm like, okay, like when I looked at the Adobe, and I think Adobe at the time was like $30 a month, which was stupid cheap, or like 20 or 10, and you could only just choose Premiere or After Effects. And I was just like, dude, I don't have time to learn Adobe, you know. And then I also didn't have a Mac, and I was like, oh man, I can't get Final Cut, or you know, iMovie, and I just had like this like rundown laptop, you know, hand-me-down laptop that my dad gave me, and I was like, oh man, and like I only knew that laptop was good for playing Club Penguin. That was it. And
Club Penguin. I love it.
yeah, and I was like, oh man, now I gotta make a movie using this laptop. Okay, and I remember calling uh this girl, and because she was the only one that I knew who had like ripped off editing software, because she had bragged about it.
Ah.
She was like, I have ripped off software. It was Vegas 7, and
Ah.
I was like, yo, can I get that? He's like, yeah, what? Like the software. It's like, what software? I'm like, the Vegas software. She's like, okay. And she hands it to me. I burn it onto that computer, and then I'm like, and the next 2 weeks before school started, I just was like, I'm going through this clip here, this one here. Um, I don't know how to do motion graphics or text. I don't know what a roll edit is. Um, I don't know a ripple. I don't know exporting other than HD. And I know that's 1080p, but I don't even know what the P stands for. So I do this, I create this video, and I show it to the principal. She's like, yeah, it's great. I showed it to, like, you know, like the whole teacher meeting. They're like, oh yeah, that's good. But I'm like, that's old people. Like, not like in a bad way.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, it's just like, they just roll their eyes. It's like, oh, that's what the principal's doing. That's what we're doing. All right, you know, like back to class, you know, got, or whatever. And I remember showing this video at the auditorium, and our school's like falling apart, right? And you know, it's just like, dude, there's like 2,000 students, you know, like it was like pretty big, you know. This was like my first video I ever edited, and like I set everything up, you know, the projector, you know, got the flash drive, like all hooked up, and how bad our sound system was, like the microphone went out early on in the assembly.
Oh boy.
So it was like everybody's just shouting. And it's just like, for 2,000 students on the first day of school, yeah, dude, they're not going to hear shit. They're just going to be like, all right, you know, we're out of class for 2 hours. Fucking whoopie-doo, you know?
Yeah.
Let's kick. So, and then when it came to the part of showing the video, we put it on, and there's no audio running, but it's everybody just looking at these images, and everybody cheering for each other. And like, I didn't like realize this until later, but it's like everybody was like, oh, that's you, like and it's just like, I was just astounded, you know, just like how everybody was like connecting, even like with no audio and visual. And it was just like a beautiful experience. And the video, there is one premise that said it's in the video. It was a song ripped off from that Phil Phillips guy, Home. And in there, it was just like, make this place your home. That was the only text in that whole video. And then it ends like with showing our school logo, and then everybody just lost it.
Wow.
You know? And like, I was like, that really surprised me. And that kind of showed me like kind of like the first, you know, like, whoa, like how big of an impact that this has.
Yeah.
You know, like, even though like something drastic like the audio not working, you know, like huge technical error, but how people are still able to connect. They don't care about the errors. They don't care about the performance. It's just like they care about the content that's there, and it
Yeah.
was true and genuine. And this was everybody coming together, and that's when I realized, like even now in this moment, it's just like that's what filmmaking is all about. It's just like making true and genuine. And it's just like you can get the technicals right, but if you don't have like any heart behind it, it's
Mhm.
just like, what is it? What are you doing?
Yeah.
you know?
So was this like a new school reveal? Like this is what the new building would have been like?
Oh, dude. So get this. This is clowning. So so I make this home video, right?
Right.
And this is the last year in this high school, and then next year they tore it down.
Oh my god.
They tore it down and built a new one. And it's just like, we talked about a whole year about making this place your home. We did, and then you tear it down.
Okay, so this is like all right, everyone's back to school. We're gonna get everyone hyped up. Like this is gonna be the great phenomenon, and make this place your home. And at the end of the day, like, hey guys, guess what? The school's going away. We're creating a new one. Everyone's like, what? Like all the seniors like, what? And then you're sitting there like, you have got to be kidding me.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. That's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It's funny, just to think about that.
Did you
Oh,
did you ever make movies on Windows Movie Maker?
no, I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
I did try that,
Yeah.
and I didn't know how to cut.
Okay.
And I was like,
Yeah. If you
I was like,
there are a couple videos on my channel. If you go way back to the earlier ones, there's some ones that are done on Windows Movie Maker, and the kind of funny part is Windows Movie Maker no longer exists. So like the videos that you see, like you look back, you're like, okay, those are decent. Those are pretty good. And then it goes from Windows Movie Maker to what was it? A video pad, and I use video pad for like, oh gosh, I mean I still use video pad now. That was back I believe in 2015. I started using it, video pad. So I've been using video pad for like 6 years now, I think. And you see the progression of the cuts, the audio clips, the texts, the visual effects of the video watching. And when you go from Vegas, which I've operated Vegas maybe twice in my entire life, you go from Vegas and then you go from Adobe. You go from this little tiny star to this huge planet of materials that you can use for your creative mind aspect. When I look back on Windows Movie Maker, the first ever memory that I had was this movie we made at home called The Lost Princess of India. And, well, I don't know because I can't find the video anywhere, and I know it was uploaded to YouTube. So, like, I don't know what happened to it, but I guess the files must have gotten corrupted or whatnot.
oh,
We were, I believe, when we made this, I believe I was like 9 or 10 when we made this. And our mom had gone off and was doing something for the day, and it was me, my 2 older siblings, and my 2 younger siblings. And we decided to make this awesome home movie about the lost princess of India. This gorgeous princess was living somewhere in the United States and was the long lost heir to the throne of India. And my goodness, you look back on those and you go, wow, that was a long time ago. I mean, I'm probably maybe this high up off the ground. I'm the prince, and my sister is the princess, and my siblings, or my oldest sibling at the time, was the camera person. She was the director, the producer, the editor. Then a year goes down the line, and we invite some of our family friends over. We make another movie, and I believe I can't exactly remember the title of this video, but the preface was there was a servant girl set out to do evil against the bad governor. the governor was this terrible, evil person, and she went out to do some good in the world and set some ships on fire, whatnot. At the end of this movie, the text rolls and it says, "What Maria has done," and fades into some pictures of the War of 1812 ships burning, and it has the Linkin Park song "What I've Done" playing in the background of that video. And it's like the perfect ending because it's such a cheesy song to play, but it's such a great song to play at the same time. And you just you look back and you go, "Oh my goodness!" We tried making a second one, didn't go over so well, but you look back at the first movie and you realize that's when it started. And I think you had this story. It was it had to do with what kind of camera was it? It was like a film camera from Walmart or something like that you were given. I can't remember what exactly the story was that got you into photography or into cameras basically. But I remember you telling me the story of someone gave you this camera, and all you did was just take repetitive pictures.
Oh, okay. So, the OG story of me becoming a camera operator slash a cinematographer. Okay, so this is what's up. So, my family and I, well, it was just my grandparents and myself. They took myself, my brother, and my cousin down to the Oregon coast, for a weekend. That was kind of a big thing, when we were younger. It's just like the boys would go one weekend and then the girls would go the next. But what they did for all of us, whenever we went down there, is that they gave us, we came to a certain age. I think I was like 5, my brother 4, my other cousin 5, right? These disposable cameras you can get at Walmart, right? The little and has like 30 images, I believe. And I was like, oh, sweet, I get to rock a camera. Adults get to do this, but this is mine. So I'm like, okay. So they gave me this camera, and we're going to be down there for, I believe it was just like 3 days or whatever it was, So it's just like, the first day, I use up all my images, like we get there the second day, part of it, and then I go to my grandfather, right? Like, I just finished this camera, and I'm like, yo, can I get another one? And he said no.
Heartbreak.
No, you used yours. And me as a kid, I'm like, oh. And I'm like, how do I get another one? He's like, you need money. I'm like, I don't have money. Will you give me money? No.
And
he's like, fuck someone else. So after that, I spent the rest of the trip bugging, my brother and cousin to use their camera to get more photographs. But that, I would say, is like actually what kind of created the addiction, honestly, because like now, like looking, like seeing you helping me on some of my own projects as well too. It's just like, it's like, no, dude, we gotta get it, we gotta make it happen. It's never like one of those is just like, I don't know. It's just like, no, we will find a solution for this. And ever since then, it's just like, it's been like kind of a solution to mindset, and like that's helped me on a bunch of different film sets throughout the years, and photography sets, and even through life as well too. It's just like, okay, it's not necessarily about trying to find the direct way. It might just be find the creative way of making this happen.
Yeah. Yeah, this has nothing to do with filming and something like that. It's a funny notice I just noticed while you were finishing that story. Your voice pitch.
Oh, yeah, man.
There's a comedian out there who you and him have a whole lot in common. You both love New York.
Oh,
and
my
when
gosh.
you get excited, your voice pitch matches. And I'm trying, and now that I'm thinking of this, I'm having a hard time remembering the comedian's name.
John
Um,
Mulaney.
John Mulaney.
Yeah.
And there was a certain story. There was a bit that he did. I had you do it because I wanted to hear it out of your see how similar it was. But every time I've noticed that every time you get to that pitch of when you get excited about telling a story, it's like, oh my god, I'm listening to freaking John Mulaney. Like what the crap? And the best part about it is John Mulaney loves New York, and Greg loves New York. The similarities between the two, like they're not like they have the same interests. It's just that things that you notice about a person, the similarities between them and maybe someone else, and that's why I have a firm belief in the theory that everyone has a doppelganger. And although whether you guys may not look alike, you guys both sound alike when you guys get excited.
Oh
So
yeah.
he
No.
might be your voice doppelganger.
Yeah. John Mulaney's copying me.
Yeah. John Mulaney's copying you. That's exactly what's happening right now.
Just copying my what is it? Verbal style.
Your verbal style, because I know I don't remember which bit I had you do, but I remember I had you do a bit.
Oh yeah.
That John Mulaney did because it was just like I need to know what this sounds like because this is uncanny. This is just uncanny, and memories like that are fantastic. When you look back upon a time that may not have been easy, this translates well into the next story I had. Last night I was watching a How I Met Your Mother episode. It was the first Thanksgiving episode they ever did, and throughout this episode, there's just a whole lot of disappointment. There's a whole lot of roughness. And at the end, Ted basically says that, yes, there are going to be rough times, but the rough times are not what's important. It's about what you learn and who you spend it with. Because if you spend it with the right people, you're going to look back at those times you're like, even those were rough times, man alive, did I have a lot of fun in those rough times because I spent it with good people. And when I look back, I look back at that time at the house. And even though there were maybe 2 or 3 rough points, we were looking around like, what is going on right now? We did it together. We got through it together. And I firmly believe we got better throughout it. And there was just so much that happened in that household that I never thought could have happened.
Oh yeah.
Never thought would have predicted. And
Oh, definitely not.
I don't think we're gonna bring up.
We could go. We'll save the house episode for a whole. Podcast.
There are definitely some stories that we're not gonna tell.
Definitely not.
for possible legal reasons. But there are definitely.
We'll wait 7 years.
Yeah.
And then we'll tell.
We'll tell the stories. But those are just kind of some of the things that this podcast is it's not just reminiscing. It is, but it's also just a conversation, and it's a good segment into to ending where we are right now. And this has been a lot of fun, and we appreciate the people jumping in, and this is a good start.
It is a really good start, and I'm really excited to see where we're going to go from here, because it's not just one episode, that changes everything.
Yes,
it's it is the progressive act of doing that will, and that's what we are going to be doing. We're just going to be continuing moving forward with all of this. Thank you for watching episode 1.
Yeah,
and taking the time, to support us along the way.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys jumping in. I'm Josh.
I'm Greg.
And we are the Horseman Podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will catch you next time. And don't forget, this podcast also goes out on YouTube. You guys get a notification on that. You guys get to see the full bit. Greg and I socials. Go ahead and follow them. You want to do a shameless plug real quick?
Yeah, we'll plug those in. We'll get better graphics in the future.
Oh yeah.
This is just the first day. It's just like the first day. Getting our feet wet. It's like, Do we have the graphic for that?
No, we
Put
don't
it
have the
out,
graphic.
put it
No,
out.
put it out. Again, from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you guys for joining us. For the people that did pop in, we hope to see you guys next week. So from the Horseman podcast, peace out, and you guys have yourselves a lovely rest of the day.